gedenkt die 6 Millionen Juden, was seinen umgekommen al-Kirosh Hashem.
Gedenkt Treblinka, gedenkt Bochum, gedenkt euch.
Gedenk Buchenwald. Gedenk Majdanek. Gedenk Sabibal. Gedenkt die Gaskamellen und die Krematorien.
Gedenkt die 6 Millionen.
Jiskadal für Jiskadash. Wie vor seinen Scheunichten soll geheiligt sein die Schau. Mehrbar weinen sie an rasch, Jiskadal für Jiskadash. Was verbünden ist uns mehr wie die durchgeglitterte Träger. Auf dem Quarren, auf dem Asch, Jiskadal für Jiskadash.
Lied wie Sterf und Wacht, steht a Stiebel an der Seite. Durch a Fenster nicht kein Geräusch, gucken Kinder lach raus. Jinger lach mit Flachsen Kerl, Mäder lach mit blonde Zell, und zusammen dort mit See gucken schwarze Augen zwei. Schwarze Augen voll mit Tränen, hat ein Näsele a klein. Lippe lacht zum Kuschen an, stark gelockte schwarze Haar. Es hat die Mama ihm gebracht, eingewickelt in der Nacht, stark gekuscht und geklopft, Stillerheit zu ihm gesorgt. Da, mein Kind, wird sein dein Ort, hör sich zu dein Mammes Wort. Ich behalt dir dort der Fall, weil dein Leben dort Gefahr. Mit den Kindern spiel sich fein, still gehorsam sollst du sein. Mal kein Jiddisch Wort, kein Lied, weil du bist nicht mehr kein Jid. Bett sich stark das Kind bei ihr, Mame, ich will nur sein mit dir. Lass nicht über mich allein, das Kind vergeht sich im Gewehen. Geht sie kuschen immer Sach, aber es hilft dir nicht kein Sach. Das Kind nur teinet, nein und nein. Ich will nicht bleiben da allein. In die Arms nimmt sie ihn und mit Weichheit in ihr Stimm singt sie ihm ihr Leid um ein und sie wiegt ihm als ein. Nachdem weint sie frei sich aus und sie tritt von Stub heraus, ungefüllt mit Sorg und Schreck, und sie geht in Nacht weg. Kalt in Draußen und a Wind, Hertha krollt sich, oi, mein Kind, dir gelost durch fremde Händ, anders hab ich nicht gekannt. Geht a Mame mit Zigarett und in Draußen kalt und schwett, zweit in Ponem ihr der Wind. Gott beschützt mein einzig Kind. Fremde Stub mit Menschen viel, das Jüngere ist stumm und still. Rett nicht, bett nicht, will kein Sach, selten wenn tut ach. Nicht kein Tag und nicht kein Nacht, nicht schlaft und nicht erwacht. Vasiliko, annommen fremd, auf sein Herz trägt und klemmt. Mame vogelt warum, wie ihr Jossele euch stumm. Keiner weiß nicht, keiner raucht, und sie wart und wart und wart. Wie ihr hevet ist sie gleich, weil wie Mäusche auf den Teich, elend einsam auf den Wind, ist verlost ihr einzig Kind.
Chavashaft, a guten Abend. Welcome, Chaverim, to our commemoration of the 79th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. I'm Mia, one of the Vorsitzer of SKIF in Melbourne. Unfortunately, my co-Vorsitzer, Saf, is unwell, but the words I will read tonight will reflect both of our thoughts, feelings and ideas. Adults can be hesitant to discuss the confronting nature of our history or of today's global conflicts and crises, particularly with primary school-aged children. As helper at SKIF, we recognise the importance of developmentally appropriate education and know that although discussions around the Koved can be confronting for young people, their capacity to understand should not be underestimated. They know that our world can be a scary place and we can't protect them from that knowledge, but we can give them context, knowledge that our world can also be a wonderful place, that people can be good and stand up for what is right, that a schönere und bessere Welt is possible. Every year at our Sommerlager summer camp, we see an especially moving example of the value, the power of educating young people, our Skifisten, your children, about their history. Each year we have a Hulbentag, one day out of just over 2 weeks of joy spent thinking together about the darkest episode of our history. And much as we sat together at our seders this past weekend, imagining that we had escaped persecution in Egypt the Skifisten and Helfer on Sommerlager end the day sitting together, remembering together that young people, some barely older than them, were caught up in the Hulben and fought together in Warsaw and elsewhere. Right now, there are young people, much like them, living in fear, living in war. The 18-year-olds understand, so do the 8-year-olds. Unsere Geschichte, our history, it matters. History is at the heart of how we consider the present and how we dream the future. And right now, as much as any time since the Hulben, history is a battlefield. Of course, history has never been about lists of agreed facts, but the misinformation and disinformation our young people face seems different. We need to consider what the weaponisation of information, what that means of the story of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and of the Hulben. Denial, erasure, revisionism. It isn't hard to imagine that information, that disinformation, the vicious fakery that erases our past, erases the deaths of so many of our family members, it will find you even if you're looking for something else. So we have a choice. We can forget, we can concede, we can throw our arms up at the regular news of ongoing suffering in the world, concluding that we can't possibly make a difference. Or we can remember, we can learn, we can teach, we can think. Die goldene Kette we speak of, the golden chain of Jewish culture, of Yiddishkeit, it's not passed down to each generation. But each generation adds a link to this chain, or it doesn't. That's our choice. The memory of the Hulben is part of our golden chain. Museums, cultural institutions, books, documents, lieder, poems. The memory of the Hulben is in them. But if it's only in there and not out here, then we will lose. That is where the memory of the Hulben will wither and die. Young people, die Jugend, our future, we are where the memory of the Hulben lives. It is our oath, our Schwur von Blut und Tränen. We owe that much and more to the young people who stood in Warsaw 79 years ago, knowing that they would surely fall. There were 490 reported anti-Semitic incidents in Australia last year. Record high hate right here. The task we are describing isn't an abstract idea. It's about protecting the material interests of Jewish people living right here, right now. Doigkeit. Our Helfer group will think with the Skifisten. We must think with Skifisten about what that means. What we can and should do right here and right now to protect our community, protect our place in this country and make it better. The kind of place that lives with hard history by facing it, by living it, by dealing with it, and not by running to the empty refuge of racism, of division, of hate. We yearn for a schönere and bessere Welt, but more importantly, we will earn that better world. This April 19th commemoration and our Hulbentag und Sommerlager are a reminder that our history is living. It's with us, whether we like it or not. The Hulben happened not very long ago, and unfortunately horrible injustices continue to happen today. Bundist Marek Edelman, a commander of the Jewish fighting organisation in the Warsaw Ghetto, the ZOB, once said, "To be a Jew means always being with the oppressed and never the oppressors." It's a statement as sage and relevant today as it was when Marek delivered it. And it isn't hard to see that young people can change the way we see the world, the things that matter. Just consider Greta Thunberg's lonely school strike for climate and how that grew, empowering young people, children, to stand up for their dreams they have for the future. I have participated in this commemoration for many years. Schmelke Kaczynski's Jugend hymn has profoundly shaped my sense of the historical task we as young people have. Ewig wollen wir verbinden unser Nächten mitten heint. We must bind our yesterday with our today. That is what we're doing here tonight. You don't drive forwards in a car and only look forwards. You look to see what lies to your left, to your right, you turn your head, you look at the rearview mirror. Tonight you will hear our SKIFists and read testimonies from survivors who resettled in our Melbourne community. These survivors built life from scratch. They built Jewish life, Jewish institutions right here that will live on for generations. We will forever be in their debt for these heroic efforts, that determination. Heint bei Nacht wollen wir hören die wichtigen Werte von die, welche haben gelebt bei den Ruben und seinen Eidesgewinn auf ein Mord von 6 Millionen Juden. Durchlehnen und singen seine Werte, sagen wir alle zu, als wir wollen versichern, als wir wird weiter verspreiten die Keules von Ort die Menschen und als der Parole wird gehen weiter von Dor zu Dor. Wir wollen ewig gedenken die mutigen Helden von Warsaw Ghetto, zwischen sie Marek Edelman, Vladka Mead, Michael Klepfisch, David Hochberg, Jurek Luschik und Gute Blones und Tobsche Davidovich. Und wir wollen nicht vergessen das Plängen Carbones, kedai wir sollen können stolz singen zusammenhang mit 79 Jahren später, wir seien da. Koved, zeyer, ondenk.
The song A Yiddish Kind, a heart-wrenching story of survival. Samuel Pizarre, an Auschwitz survivor who lived in Melbourne, penned the phrase, the triumph of the spirit. Many survivors of the ghettos and camps found their way to Melbourne after the war. Many of them wrote about their experiences. Others were silent. There is no doubt that the pain of those that wrote and those that didn't write or speak was equivalent. Many of them, survival is an instinct that all living organisms have. Self-preservation, to outlive. It manifests itself in all manner of behaviours and actions. Fight, flee, collaborate, defend, protect, in various quantities. A survivor is a person able to continue living despite experiencing difficulties. The common traits of a survivor: positive attitude, optimistic, mental toughness, adaptability. The quality of that life after the event, the trauma, the pain, the heartache, the massive loss, the psychological impact in varying dimensions colours the actions in life. Tonight, as 6 Melbourne survivors' experiences are read, we piece together the mosaic of tragedy. We honour and admire the survivors. We will never forget.
Überleben, to outlive, to survive. Was muss ein Mensch tun, zu überleben? Eine gewisse physische Starkheit haben wir muss vermogen, speziell in die Ghetto und in die Lagern. Aber wichtiger ist gewinn vermogen geistige, moralische Starkheit. Heint wollen wir probieren verstehen, was es auch gemeint überleben. 6 von unseren non-Stechaverim, Alpines, leben gebliebener KZler, haben geschrieben Poesie, Prose, wegen seiner Erfahrungen in die Ghettos und die Lagern. Abraham Biedermann, Gary Gray, Dr. Apolowitsch, Bonner Wiener, Jakob Rosenberg und Dvoire Feigmann. Sie haben beschrieben ihre Gedanken, Episoden von seinem tagtäglichen Lebenskampf, zu leben, zu überkommen das Gefährlichste, das Peinlichste, was ein Mensch kann nur mitmachen. Wir sind sehr dankbar für die Bücher und Wörter, das Eide sagen, was sie haben durchgelebt und verschrieben. Weil man kann sein sicher, als das Schreiben ist gewinn peinlich, voll mit Erinnerungen, mit gewaltigen Verlusten, von einer Herzwehtung, von Momenten von Leben gebliebener Schuld. Wir können heint überleben mit sie. Wir wollen sie keinmal nicht vergessen. Koved, zeyer, ondenk.
I'd like to tell about the ghetto. Is there a language for that? How do you describe a little child's plea silenced by death? I resolved to speak in verse. Perhaps it would lessen the pain. Or maybe the verse is my curtain to bleed and sustain. Why had the murderer spared me? My dear ones, oh God, what an end! Trapped in a bunker like mice, gassed and burnt. Oh visions, visions of horrors, companions of all my nights. Will I forever be hostage to devilish sights? Even in moments of joy, there hides an insidious catch. Father's bleeding fingers, mending my yellow patch. My father was a man of peace, a dreamer locked up in his dream, with an open, generous hand, though his pockets were lean. My mother, my sweet little mother, her story an arduous tale, and yet her eyes sparkled hope, her lips a lingering smile. I also had two sisters, mothers in the prime of life, Ida, the gentle dove, and Paula, the rebel in strife. And then my two little nieces, buds of a miscarried spring, never permitted to play, verboten to sing. This was my only family, trapped in the ghetto confine. I remember that luminous morning, the sun's mocking shine. The street was tense, Jew spoke with heat of hope and of defeat. The war is at its end, God tests us with sorrow, Messiah is on his way. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. And yet we live to see spring once more, like a golden midwife. The sun awakened the earth to new life. Awaken the earth to the birth of green, the leaf of a radish. It's a dream, it's a dream. A dream, an illusion. We thought we had found a door, like a delirious sailor sighting shore. But illusions were precious in the ghetto, I can attest to that. I saw illusions bought and sold for a last crumb of bread. And then came summer, a dark date to remember, the year 1942, the 5th of September.
That morning, we were greeted by white placards with black news. Mothers, Germany demands your children, all sick and elderly Jews. Do not obstruct this, mothers. Bring your children freely. Let's not provoke a bloodbath and cause more killing. So spoke the appointed agents, their sinister pleading lie. Mothers, give up your children, and no one needs to die. The action began in the morning, with the break of dawn, and by the blood-red sunset, thousands of children were gone. And yet we lived with hope, nourished by a delirious dream, of a heroic Messiah who speeds from the east to redeem. And the ghetto buzzed with rumours, spread by starving Jews, figments of imagination, dazzling, felicitous news. News of gigantic battles, deliverance is coming, it's here. Oh, how sweet this melodious lie, how bitter the truth, the fear. Soon you will all be resettled, your good work is well known. You have Germany's word of honour, you'll be treated like our own. On the 13th day, August 1944, after a journey of tears and sweat, my family and I arrived at Germany's kingdom of death. I remember our last embrace, mother breaking down. What will happen to the children? Will I ever see you, my son? Oh, I know what happened to the children. I know what became of them all. But to keep what's left of my sanity, there are scenes I refuse to recall. I once had a mother and father, two sisters in the prime of life. Ida, the gentle dove, and Paula, the rebel in strife. I also had two nieces, little girls of 6 and 4. one with a windowless basement, the other a lock on her door. Now I have only ashes and an everlasting sigh, and in the twilight wind, the howl of a mother's cry.
Dort, auf jener Seite, ist die Freiheit. Seht sie, von der Weit, durch die Trotten. Dort, auf jener Seite, der freie Nigel. Dorten läuft die Zeit, dorten leben Menschen freie. Bruder, nimm meine Hand, herauf weinen. Bruder, kein dein Bräut mit die Zähne, und nicht guck hin, mehrer Rebell. Es ziehen Felder grün, dorten, lieber Bruder meiner. Vergess on dem, vergess und kein dein Bissen, trink dein Pein und fress. Und hast der Kischen, leg dein schweren Kopf, dein Mieden, rollen dir in Schlaf. Dort, tu schmieden dir dein Freiheit.
Es seien angekommen frische Ideen wegen dem heldischen Widerstand von Jeden in Polen, wie euch wegen der Zusammenarbeit mit der polnischen Freiheitsbewegung, die Bombardierung kolossal, auf den Assenruh, die Mama zugeteilt in Schneiders Resort. In Oven dem Baguette, meine Reinfiel ganz schwach. Jankel, also sich normal wie letztens, die Stimmung nicht koscher, gekennt sein besser. Mein Schlusswort, jede Bewegung ansteht als Bewegung von Jechidim. Und bis sie wird an Massenbewegung, muss dauern. Wir haben bei der Gründung gehabt Lektoren. Heint haben wir einen kollektiven Hirschleckert in der Gestalt von den Helden von Warschau und anderen Ghettos. Wir haben Kleppfisch, Marmorstein und so weiter. Und wir müssen in Kampf siegen. Heint ist der 1. Mai. In 1944 wären wir frei. Das ist der Beweis von Heint. Wir haben durchgeführt eine schöne Aktie, gearbeitet weniger, von 10 bis 10:30 nicht gearbeitet, aber alle Motoren seien gegangen. Euch in andere Sorten, gut, Teil gestanden. Wir haben gemacht eine jontöftige Stimmung, gesungen Kampflieder und erzählt wegen unserer Helden, wie hier Schleckert, Kleppfisch. Die Rede von Heusmann, die Stellung von den Sozialisten zu Polen. Der Rücktritt von Stanczyk und Kwafinski. Berlin stark bombardiert. In Abend eine heitere Stimmung bei uns. Der Zusammentreff nicht koscher. Bis 100 Mann. Die Leute haben euch gerettet. Wir seien von unserer Chevre zufrieden. Der Befehl von Stalin und die Allianten. Der Anfang wird vollkommen gemeinsam.
At that time, we reached the group with the name of Bielski Group. Bielski and his two brothers. Bielski was the leader of that group, and his two brothers were leaders too, but he was the oldest leader, and everybody had his job to do. He had even a brother of 15 years there. And this man, to me they were still very young men, they were originally from Novogrodek. So when I reached Bielski, or Bielski's group, there were 600 Jews in that group. And the night before, the Germans surrounded them and killed some of them. So when I arrived, it was a day or 2 days after that happening. So everybody was very sad, and they decided it's no place to stay, that we've got to go and reach the big forests and maybe be able to survive there. So 600 people, it's not that easy to move. There were even kids, young kids, some were older people. But we had to start walking. We weren't supplied with anything, no food, no nothing. Everybody had to look for himself. And it was a very, very long way to walk. But they lived in a group, which gives you a lot of support. You're not by yourself. You've got people to tell you what to do, and this is very important. The same was even when we walked to the forests with the name of Naliboki. Pushta is forest, and Naliboki is the name of that big forest which went to Minsk. But the fields were full of potatoes, vegetables, all sorts of things, and there was nobody to dig them out. So the Bielskis decided to take a group and send them to that place. It's a fact that that place was the same as the name of Naliboki town or Naliboki country town. Tons of potatoes. And we were happy. We'll hide them and we'll have winter. What to do? To eat. We used the clear water for cooking, the brown water for washing car. Didn't use as much black water, but because it looks more like mud. Eventually, we came back, and the Bielski brothers were already there, and the life started just the same way as before. Some people went in the nights for food, and some people worked again, and some people did all sorts of things. And we had concerts. Yeah, And we went to have a bath, and the life went on just like the first day. And what else? It was, we had a prison. Because there were rules, strong rules, which you shouldn't do this or that. And if you did the wrong thing, they had the right to take your life. It's funny, for me it was very hard that time to understand how can one do to the other things like that. But we had to have laws. Otherwise, we wouldn't stay alive. We left the partisans with 1,200 Jews, because Bielski is the one who said, I am more interested to bring out the Jews than to fight the Germans.
Von die Ghettos zwiese Wind, in die Wälder freie, anstatt Ketten auf die Hand, rauter Bix, anaie. Auf die Aufgabes, mein Freund, kuscht mir Hals und Achsel. Mit der Bix bin ich von Heim fest und aufgewachsen. Wenig seine Meeren soll, dreiste wie Millionen, reißen mir auf Berg und Tal, Brücken, Echalonen. Der Faschist verzittert wer, weiß nicht wo, von wannen, Stürmen wie von unterdreht, jeden Partisaner. Zwar ne komme hat sehen, wer mit Blut verschreibt ihm, vor dem heiligen Beginn wäre mir die Schreiten. Nein, wir wollen kein Mal sein, letzte Mohikaner, sprengt der Nacht die Sonnenschein, der Jid, der Partisaner.
Die Nacht ist ausgestellt. Ich bin sehr neugierig, was Menschen wollen trachten, wenn sie wollen sich da wissen wegen unser Leben in die Konzentrationslagern, wegen ein Leben eingetunken in Angsten von Todschreck. Nicht einmal haben Lippen gemurmelt, als Efscher wollte schon besser gewesen, in Gaskammer zu gehen. Wir, die 8 Mädchen, welche haben sich gehalten zusammen, haben fest beschlossen, als sei wie, muss ein Mensch sterben. Wenn sie es aber gekommen zu einer Selektion, ist man geworden eingeschränkt, unsehbar, instinktiv, ein Tritt rechts, ein halben links, für uns und zurück, und helmal, nicht fehlendig, sich erweitert von einer Lagerschwester. Jeder einer hat gesucht den masodicken strategischen Punkt, was hat sich herausgewiesen zu sein weniger bedroht. Nach der Selektion, ein Glück, man kuscht sich und man lebt wieder, auch und weh zu also leben. In der Nacht vor der Befreiung ist gewesen unmöglich zu haben Drimmel. Die Wände haben gezittert von Schisserei. Mein Kopf ist voll mit allen Sorten Gedanken. Es kann sein, als ich will überleben, habe ich kalt getracht. Das Wort Überleben hat mich nicht zurückgelassen, eine ganze Nacht. Der kalte Schweiß vom Kopf bis die Füße hat soft geboren ein Schreck vor der Freiheit, eine Meure vor ein Tod und eine Meure vor ein Leben. Habe ich angeschrieben ein Gedicht vor dir, meine Schwester.
Schwester, mein Getreie, ist es möglich, was geschehen, als wenn kein Mal in mein Leben, weil ich liebste dich nicht sehen. Ich wollte mit Leib und Leben wählen, es soll allzach allem sein. Du sollst wieder wie einmal enttreuen mir, soll das dein. Nicht gekannt ich hab begreifen, hab geglätt und getracht, als das Unglück wird verschwinden, was der Geurel hat gebracht. Ihre kluge, schöne Augen haben treurig gesagt, als sie seit schwarze Zukunft und in ihr ein Sturm jagt. Und singen mir schon beide, früher dich vertracht, dann besiegt dem treue Jugend, geschifft mir haben bis bei Nacht. Ist es leider nicht kein Rolle, Reue treurige war, dann zerrissen unser Leben, jetzt ist es voll mit Zar. Und allein bin ich geblieben, mit Nächten atemteint, hab dir ständig in mein Dinien, Schwester meine, schönste Freund.
From a spoonful of soup. Come on, Gary. I warmed up the last bit of soup. Let's share it together. Okay, Stephanie. So we sat at our kitchen table, each with a spoon in the hand, and we started. 1 spoon me, 1 spoon Steph, and then my mind wandered. It reminded me of Nusek and Sulek in Ludwigsdorf Lager, who were just preparing their soup for the evening meal. They were sitting at a long wooden table. In front of them were 2 enamel soup dishes and 2 pieces of bread with a bit of margarine on top. Each was holding the most priceless possession in the lager, an aluminium spoon. The soup, as usual, was watery, with a lonely bit of spinach floating on the surface. 1 soup dish was put aside and covered to preserve the heat. The other was gently placed between the 2 lucky consumers. There was no hurry in their spoon movements, just the rhythm. First Nusek dipped the spoon, lifted it, inhaling the aroma and swallowing its contents slowly. And then, and only then, Sulek performed the same function. When the plate was empty, Sulek licked the dish clean. Now they reached for the second plate. The procedure was repeated, with the only difference being that this time the privilege of licking the plate clean was Nusek's. Why doesn't each of them drink his own soup? They don't really consume any more, one way or the other. It's the illusion, Gustav, my friend Henrik replied. the sense of prolonging the pleasure of eating. This way, when you reach the bottom of the first dish, you know that it's not the end. There is still another one with which to begin again. Those two, Henrik explained, are lager partners. If you have a partner you think you can manage to fight the hunger and starvation with some sort of united front. Later that month, 2 new inmates came into our barracks, Zeitman and his son Melush. It wasn't unusual to see a father and son together in the labour camp. For the Germans, it was so much easier to humiliate a father in front of his son or a son in front of his father. And humiliation, as you know, was the favourite pastime for the bastards. What about fellow prisoners, you ask? Well, do you know what the number one enemy was amongst the prisoners in any lager? The jealousy virus. We in our barrack got used to the Zeitman and Son partnership. The old man, as we called him, was very pleasant, helpful and kind to everyone, a characteristic unusual in lager life. Maybe because of this, what I saw that evening came to me as a shock. The barrack was quiet, as many of us had already gone to bed, and they were the only ones sitting at the long table. I was watching them eating the soup with great envy, as I'd already finished my soup many hours earlier, and my stomach was playing that painful Pavlov reflex game like it did so often. My God, I whispered to myself, what is he doing? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes. The old man was dipping his spoon twice whenever Melush turned around, even for a fraction of a second. I don't understand. A father to his son. Henrik warned me months ago, again and again. Remember, Gustav, in lager, it's only you and yourself that counts. Nothing else, nobody else. I know, but this is a father cheating his son. I was crying that night, not because I was hungry, although I cried from hunger many times before and many times after. Not because I was angry. I cried in anger many times before and many times after. This time it was because I thought that what I had seen could deprive me for a moment of the faith in what was dearest to me, the faith in the memory of my dad and my mum, who by now were already gone. I say for a moment only because soon my tears dried, my hunger stopped, and a deep sleep overcame me. God must have watched over me that night. There in my sleep I saw them around me as I did many times in my dreams before. Dad, Mum, Ada, my little sister. With all their love, they played with me, they cuddled and kissed me, they caressed me and wouldn't let me go. I woke up next morning strong and calm. I knew that whatever I'd seen or would see in that misery around me would never, never cloud my love and memories of them. When 2 or 3 months later dysentery swept through the lager, killing many, the old man Zeitman was one of the first victims. There were no funerals in those days, but somehow we had a minyan that evening in our barracks. Someone helped Melush to say Kaddish. I loved him so much, he said later that evening when the two of us were standing alone. You know, Gustav, how many times I pretended to look away, to let him have one more spoonful. He was so weak. I loved him so much. I loved him so much. Melush repeated again, crying. You know, Steph, let's finish the soup.
Wir gucken in
When I recall the days behind the electrified fence, I often wonder how I went on living. So many times I nearly gave up, when hunger pangs punished my body, when rain and frost chilled the marrow of my bones, and my fingers and toes were paralyzed by the cold. Many of my comrades froze to death at temperatures dropped below 20 degrees, sometimes 25 degrees. Yet I continued to struggle, stay sane, and stay alive. Half naked and frozen, I would cry with pain, but my tears simply froze in my cheeks. Every so often, I thought how much easier it would be to touch the high-voltage electrified fence than go on living. Just one split second, and it would all be over. But somehow, I could not. Driven by a force beyond my own reason, beyond logic, I had to go on living. I found that I wanted very much to live, and one day fulfill my mother's last wish. From the ashes of Auschwitz and the dark abyss of death and evil in Bergen-Belsen, to the ultimate triumph of the human spirit, I started my life again. Together with my cousin Mendel Blitwell, I left Germany on the 6th of November 1945. Disguised as American soldiers, we jumped on an empty freight train in the middle of the night and illegally crossed the German border into Belgium. There I met Madeleine, the 15-year-old who was later to become my wife. She had returned from the south of France, where she had spent the war passing as a non-Jew. Although I had lost everyone in the Holocaust, Madeleine brought life back into my soul. She was my resurrection. After having lost my parents in Auschwitz and later my brother, she showed me that I still had a life to live. In 1949, I chose to come to Australia rather than follow an acting career in New York. Madeleine bore me a son, Shimon Dov, or Simon Bernard, so my father's memory is kept alive, and the name of our family will continue. Simon is aware of his name. He knows how his grandfather lived, how he died, and why. On the 12th of May, 1980, in the prime of her life, Madeleine passed away, at the age of 49. Since then, life without her has never been the same. But the sun still rises every morning, and I am here to live every day as it comes.
Servus Jaden. Ich bin heint in Linz, Österreich, in a Lager. Gewinn bin ich in Auschwitz, Mauthausen und dann in Gussen 2. Das ist sicher gewinn der ärgste Lager in ganz Europa. Jeder einer halt sein Lager ist gewinn das ärgste. Ich hab das Lager ausgehalten. Ich bin auch gesund. Fühl mich gut. Ich bin da allein. Ich hab da nicht keinen mehr von unseren. Aber Chaverim hab ich gute. Ich mein, was wir tun da in Polen, ist weit nicht richtig. Das jeden Problem seht euch im Ganzen anders, wie ihr meint. Auf jeden, was seinen Erweis von die Lagern, kann man nicht rechnen. Herr, Chevre, schreibt mir alles, ob seine wirklich der Möglichkeiten von produktiver, gesellschaftlicher Arbeit kann ich kommen, weil mein Leben hat ein Ziel. Arbeiten für jeden, für dem Volk, von welcher ich stamm und lieb, und Arbeit für den Sozialismus, für die Idee, was wird uns alle binden. Unsere Schule, die Schule von Bund, von der Partei, was uns erzeugen für eine neuere, schönere Welt, wird uns ewig sein der Wegweiser zum Sozialismus.
Help nicht,
Man darf nicht kein Tränen, von Tränen wird kringer. So schwer sein, wie schwer ist die Luft in der Biene. So schwer sein der Blei, welcher läuft von die Finger in Nesten von Bixen, was zillen in Säune. So schwer sein die Klolle, was fällt auf die Sonne. So schwer sein die Faust, was zäfflet die Bezwinger. So stolz sein, so stark sein beim Jossem der Ponnen. Man darf nicht kein Tränen, von Tränen wird ringer.
Lass mich endigen mein Lied, was angehäuben hat die Mama bei mein Wiegele. Und halbe Nacht, zerbrochen, schwach und müd, gewiegt, verwiegt mich mit der goldenen Siegele. Lass mich endigen mein Lied, mit was vom Angehäuben sich zu weisen, mit nicht sichere, mit erster Tritt, noch dorten, zwischen Anker, Scher und Eisen. Das Lied von euch kommen und von umkommen. Das Lied, was meine Brüder haben euch im Ghetto es gesungen. Und im Kampf, nicht lassen dich sich lebendig begraben. Lass mich endigen auf Mama lassen, Jiddisch, das gekohlte Gesang von jener Tag, wenn ein Gefangener beim Tod hat aufgeschrieben. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst, der letzten Weg.
Schwarzen